Good morning. January 27th, Tuesday, 2026. My name is Joe, and just trying to put my thoughts out there. I looking at everything that's going on the right, on the left, and everyone's losing their minds. But what I want to point out is that we are all citizens of the same country. Yeah? Unless we're proven to be uh, spies or plants by other nations to upend this social experiment that we call the United States. We are, in fact, a democracy and a republic that is founded on the Constitution. So, my question becomes, if we had North Korea or Russia or any other country in the streets of Minneapolis doing what they do, coercing Minneapolis or Minnesota to hand over voter rolls. What voter rolls have to do, or voter information has to do with ICE or immigration enforcement? No idea. But it seems like this is what this administration is used to. Right? Use one thing to coerce another. If there was any other country that had a fundamentally different view of what America is supposed to be, came into one of our cities and behaved the way that Kristi Noem, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Stephen Miller, and Donald Trump have behaved, I think the entire nation, red, blue, black, whatever, we would have come together to kick their asses out. If someone else, anyone else, had come in to do what Kristi Noem and DHS and ICE have done in Minneapolis, I don't think us as United States citizens would stand for it. Now, I'm not saying Kristi Noem shouldn't enforce immigration policy. I'm not saying Donald Trump shouldn't support and enforce immigration policy. And there's plenty of cases that are working its way through the courts, which is how a civilized society settles disputes. Allow the courts and allow the judges to make their decisions. But because that process isn't fast enough for you, you choose to essentially invade a city that is unconscionable. Anyway, forgetting all of that and setting it all aside, my last point is that it seems that ICE, even when they make a mistake, don't want to apologize, don't want to come forward and say, hey, guess what, guys? We messed up. Right? We picked up a U.S. citizen who helped the nation when we were in Vietnam and Laos, and we rescued them, brought them here, gave them citizenship, gave them a life, allowed them to live the American dream, and then decided to break into his home and drag him out in his underwear in freezing cold temperatures, and then drop him off because you realize you made a mistake. The integrity of a governing body is to admit when you make a mistake, take ownership, and rectify that kind of behavior. But it seems like there's none of that. Okay. You don't want to take ownership of mistakes. Okay. Let's say we accept that. But now it seems that they don't want any witnesses or victims of their actions to survive to tell their story. I don't know anyone as yet who has effectively gotten into an active struggle with ICE and survived. So it begs the question, has ICE been given the instruction to ensure that these people don't become martyrs and don't live to tell their story or live to say, hey, guess what, guys? I'm not a domestic terrorist. I was just a mother dropping off my child to school. I was not following these agents around. They happened to be there, and I had words with them. And then I was driving off when shots rang into my car. The agents seemed discombobulated and not coordinated. One is telling me to pull over, the other one is telling me to leave. So for my own safety, fearing for my own safety, I chose to leave, which was then utilized as an opportunity to shoot me to death. Or, hey, guess what? I was an ER nurse, a registered firearm owner, licensed and all of that. I attended a protest. The firearm never left my holster. I was video recording things. I saw a woman get sprayed with a chemical irritant, which a court order has instructed ICE not to use on the American public, and then shoved to the ground, physically manhandled. And me being an ER nurse, just instinctively reacted to protect and aid this woman. And I get surrounded by multiple agents, pinned down, my legally registered firearm being pulled away before I feel the bullets piercing through my body, subsequently ending my life. Or I was an undocumented alien, immigrant, not a criminal. I was taken into ICE custody, and looking at the prospect of returning to a place where I was running from, escaping from, seeking refuge from, looking at the prospect of returning to that place, I thought it better for me to take my own life. I was stopped in that attempt, and subsequently, instead of allowing me to die peacefully, they chose to pile on me, depress my chest with knees, and choke me, and then kill me. Again, I am not saying that this is the policy. My question becomes, doesn't it sound like they were given the instruction that, hey, if this becomes something that it shouldn't have become, make sure the person doesn't survive so that we can tell the narrative that Miss Good was a domestic terrorist, or the ER nurse in Minneapolis was a domestic terrorist. This word domestic terrorist now seems to be just tossed around. And it's sad. It's sad that J6 was not domestic terrorism, but a mom dropping off her child was not. It is. Or according to their narrative, she was a domestic terrorist. An ER nurse helping another fellow human being, carrying a phone, was a domestic terrorist. They shout this from the rooftops that he should not have brought his weapon to a protest. Well, you know, I didn't hear them say this when on January 6th, almost the entire crowd had weapons. Right? Not a single Republican said, hey, these guys should not have shown up armed to the teeth, with cache of weapons waiting on the wings. This narrative that legal firearms should not be at protests. Well, why don't you make that law? Until you make that law and restrict firearms at protests, maybe don't bring that up. Because as far as I'm concerned, the Second Amendment still stands, and people are allowed to bring their firearms unless it is prohibited, like into a government building or a school or things like that. That is the absolute epitome of hypocrisy, that you would give a clear pass to J6 and all the protesters that went there and carried firearm. The woman that lost her life in the middle of that, getting swept up in that moment. I'm unsure as of this recording. I should have probably looked it up if she was armed or not, but I wouldn't think anyone on the right would have said, well, you know what? She shouldn't have been there. She shouldn't have been breaking a window Now, let me be very clear. Black Lives Matter, J6, protests, as long as they're peaceful, fine. Even in Black Lives Matter moments, the Kyle Rittenhouse moment, I don't think that man Kyle, was to be attacked. I don't know if he provoked the guys. I'm not familiar with the details, but at the end of the day, he brought a weapon to a protest, and not a single voice on the right, as far as I can recall, said, you know what, he didn't belong there. Especially not with a weapon in a politically and emotionally charged situation. He didn't belong there. But he was there. He didn't deserve to be attacked. If his intention was just to protect businesses and show up for as a concerned citizen, whatever his reasons were, maybe they were right or wrong. I'm not one to judge. But he didn't deserve to be attacked. But those that were there truly believing in their cause and protesting didn't deserve to be harassed, didn't deserve to be killed. Now, let me ask you one final question again. Is this America? I came into the country in 1996. Parents are immigrants. I naturalized, my parents naturalized. The question becomes, where have we gone? And I want my friends on the right to take a clear look about what this administration is doing. Stop for a second and think critically. Not just believing everything that's being fed to you, but think critically and say, should ICE be going door to door, stopping person by person and asking for identification? As a United States citizen, I am not required to carry identification. But just yesterday, I told my father that he should carry his passport with him. Because even living in a deep blue state, you never know. And I don't want my father or my mother, myself, my children, my loved ones, to be caught up in a situation where, because of the color of our skin, we are stopped and we do not have the moment to say, hey, I am a United States citizen. I went through the process. I went through the rigors. I know what it took to get here. I deserve to be here. This is my home. 32 years of my 45-year life has been spent here. This is my home. But the home that I aspired to when I first came in this country, I do not recognize it anymore. The ideals that I believed in, and that I believed that this country believed in: peace, honor, dignity, duty, tolerance, love, civility, humanity, has somewhere been lost. And my fellow citizens, I need to say, we need to find our way back. So ask yourself, if this was anyone else in our cities, would we tolerate that our fellow citizens are being treated this way? Thank you.